one of the most significant things about our industry is how dynamic it is. Missions and definitions of what we're looking to achieve have and will continue to change. But what's important is that we have to be able to simplify what's an incredibly complex industry for and on behalf of our clients. From a mission perspective, we are, as Finecast, the global leader in addressable television. And really what we do is enable advertisers to deliver messaging to custom audiences across TV formats. And that's by combining the data-driven precision of digital with the scale and brand safety of television. But what's really important as well is that we are providing access to a fragmented ecosystem as and when new platforms do emerge, and as content providers change and evolve their commercial models. And of course, as people continue to consume the plethora of great content being created every day around the world. And so really, that's our mission to do this. And a lot of our journey in Finecast has been about people, capability, and bringing together some of the brightest minds in the addressable TV space. And that's from engineering to measurement, advanced analytics to software development, client leadership, and people who excel in objective-based planning, which really is a necessity for total TV transformation. And I think, again, this rolls up into our mission. We've done this because we're able to work ahead of the market as it evolves, particularly when it does come to advanced technology integrations. And as I said, sort of new players and new providers enter the market. And that is led by market-leading planning software, first, second, third-party data strategies. And, as I said, working with new and emerging content providers. The final piece for us from a mission perspective as well is to constantly evolve and iterate advanced measurement and innovation frameworks. And when I think about this, it's always keeping ourselves honest and always being able to have a sense of the opportunity in the marketplace. And there's a great slide that I always kind of keep very close to me, and will show sort of during presentations, and that's the forecast of the total addressable TV industry and what it's due to be worth by 2025. And that forecast is 45 billion, and that's looking at growth across connected television, addressable set-top box, and of course, new and emerging forms of addressability, HBB TV as an example, and then of course, new screens. So, it's always really important to make sure that you sort of ground that mission, as a business in the context of the total market in the industry.
Nicola, and of course, the industry is very different market to market, and you are in several markets. How do you sort of, let's talk about, your foray into the United States, which is fairly recent, and sort of expansion that's underway, and how you stand up in different markets, which are really can be so different.
Yeah, it's we've been on a really big journey. We have been in the UK now for 4 years, 3 years in the Australian marketplace. The marketplace that I sort of left to move into a global role, so has always a really sweet spot, sort of in my heart. Second year in Canada, but also second year in Germany and US, and it's been amazing. This year we've also officially launched in India and Thailand as examples, with an extensive roadmap for the remainder of 2022. And that does include a flagship external launch for our flourishing US market in June. In fact, by the end of this year, we're going to be launched in 14 markets, which is super exciting. And we continue to work with all key publishers in each market, a number of unique data partners, including the likes of Inscape in the US, and of course working through with a number of significant clients that importantly are all on different trajectories of their own TV transformation. And it's that point that's important, that is the important point. You know, each client is on a different trajectory of total TV transformation. And in response to that, we've now got 350 people globally within the Finecast family, which is fantastic. And we're going to grow. You know, we have an expansion strategy that will go beyond our current footprint, developing markets like LATAM, Japan, investigating the DACH region, the Nordics. But again, the important point is to note that our market expansion principles are philosophically the same around the world. You know, we look for the right data partners, the right supply partners, brand safe, premium, professionally produced content. We make sure that we are leading the curve from a tech integration perspective. So we'll always have those ingredients, if you like, but they have to have a local nuance. And so what we actually do is in every market, we start at the beginning, which sounds like a logical place to start, but it's an important thing to point out. So we'll define an MVP, a minimum viable product, and we'll then move the product through into an advanced product and diversify. But of course, not every market is at the same point when we walk into that market. And so we approach each market individually with a robust framework and assessment process. And we do that to ensure that we've got the right quality solution that remains true to our core product principles, but also consider the market opportunity from a media strategy and investment perspective. And of course, the market readiness from a TV transformation perspective. One of the areas that we also ensure that we embed when we're building out a market is our proprietary software planner, Finecast Audience Planner. It's a world-leading technology platform that is the only end-to-end addressable TV planning platform on a global scale. Each market we're in has Audience Planner live, and each market must launch with Audience Planner. And really, it's what I term the backbone or the glue, if you like, of Finecast, and it enables us to plan, to optimize within a single campaign, as I said, is end to end. And having Audience Planner within our markets as we launch them allows us to iterate, to learn as we go from a data provider, data partner, supply perspective. And of course, because of that, it means that we continue to invest significant levels into the platform itself. And so that's also just about constantly enhancing our proposition with new partners in marketplace. So it's a really methodical approach to standing up a market, but we've got a really solid global team that lean very heavily into each of the individual markets so that we understand those nuances from the get-go.
Nicola, and finally, let's talk about innovation. And, certainly we've spoken about the importance of creativity in this addressable world, for years, and there's a lot of interesting innovation going on. Tell us how you're working with partners like Flash Talking and others to make sure that this addressable process provides the right creative and results.
And I think, my previous point was to talk about this notion of innovation during transformation. Innovation is absolutely at the heart of our DNA as Finecast. It's a global value that we all live and breathe. And if we want to sustain our market-leading addressable TV solution and the competitive advantage that it does yield for customers, then it's an absolute fact that we must continue to heavily invest in innovation. One of the great things for me that you experience is as you're building out a global organization, you build out a global knowledge base. We have a lot of communities around Finecast that are able to elevate innovations in each market so we can lift them up at a global level, share best practice, share learnings, and then push them back out into other markets. But in practice, our approach is, as I said, to sort of collaborate across the ecosystem. And when I say that, that's our agencies, our clients, and our partners. And we look to create an imagined vision with our partners across the ecosystem, and then build out sort of the fastest and simplest thing we can do with the highest probability of success. And innovation for me means exploring everything from supply, new screens, platforms, creative, as you mentioned, measurement, and data. So we talk about creative, new creative proof of concepts, which ultimately enable brands to tell better stories and enhance viewer experience with more relevant and impactful formats. We've looked at dynamic creative, new innovative ad formats, shoppable ads. We've actually just finalized a series of use cases across QR codes in UK, Canada, and the US. But we worked also with flash talking in one of our markets to test approximately 350 pieces of creative within the Finecast ecosystem, obviously carefully managing reach and frequency. And it was a really, really big success. So we're doing a lot in the creative space. And of course, as I said, that allows us to start setting benchmarks in a new era where there aren't that many. But we're also looking at sort of new audience and data proof of concept. So crucial for insights, optimization, and measurement, and ultimately making advertising more relevant. We've also worked with clients to integrate search intent data into client campaigns, and we've specifically done that in the German regions. And it sounds obvious, but it does mean that we can distinguish between weekday and weekend behavior, regional differences across any one country. So that's been a really nice proof of concept as well. And finally, from an innovation perspective, and this one's really, really exciting, and we'll be talking about at Cannes this year. As in the UK, Finecast and Amplified Intelligence have set out to study levels of audience attention across TV content, specifically in the UK, looking at linear and CTV and the impact that creative and segment relevance has on attention. So as I said, more to come in that space. But I also think that things like attention are a really great pivot point in the addressable TV industry. We have the infrastructure now to be able to measure attention, something we know that's been incredibly important in TV viewership for many years, and also TV performance. So to be able to measure that, put benchmarks again around that, I think is really, really exciting. So we've got a lot happening in the innovation space as well.